evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
89.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio, your old friend Virgil back once again for another exciting episode of the podcast. As you guys know, the only podcast dedicated to the love and revival of our beloved drive-in culture. Joined as always by my co-host and general manager extraordinaire, Mark. Say hello, my friend.
Hello.
Joined as well by concession manager. You know her, you love her, you know her as Mama Beth. Welcome, Mama Beth.
Hello.
And we are so excited because we are open for our 2024 season. We really started it off with a bang, and should I say you guys started it off with a bang for us. This was a very, very difficult one to just make happen and get us up and open. There were so many hurdles with the passing of the great Jeff Maddox, who you guys know and love from the podcast and your visits to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. It was so hard to put all these pieces together while we were grieving, like I said on the previous podcast. But what made it all worthwhile, all the craziness that we went through, is you guys coming back full force. As soon as 6 o'clock clicked, it was like we flicked a switch, and you guys just came pouring in. You were ready to show that love. You were ready to support everything that we're doing at the Mahoning. And as you guys may or may not know, it was also a memorial for our leader, Jeff Maddox. And we had a nice display out in the concession lobby, a table filled with his favorite things. We had the collage that Nancy put together for the service, Jeff's service. And it was just a really beautiful night, and two nights really, that from what we said is it just allowed the audience to come to terms with this great loss, but it also allowed us to come to terms with it. Am I right, guys?
Slowly, yeah, because we've had a little bit more time to grieve than the public has, and that grief was somewhat clouded or mixed in with, we need to keep this theater running. So like in the amount of time between everybody heard about Jeff passing away and us opening, we had to create a new business. Like, as far as the world is concerned, nothing has changed, but as far as internally, it is legally a new business running the place now. So part of our grief was mixed with, oh my God, we have so many things we have to do. But I was saying to people on the opening weekend that it's really going to become real to me in about a month. Because there were many nights where Jeff wasn't there. He had other things he had to do or whatever, and we, ran the show. But once several weekends pass and we realize, yeah, he's not going to be showing up anymore, that I think is when it's personally going to hit me. But yeah, it was a lot of love, a lot of happy people. People are always thrilled and happy to see each other and us back at the theater. It was that mixed with a lot of respect for Jeff. Gene Beretta had done an amazing illustration that you've probably seen online by now, and that original was framed and sitting in Jeff's chair that night, which was heartwarming and sad to see. And it was quite an opening weekend, unlike we've ever had or ever will have again.
Yeah, he was a one of a kind, and his presence on the lot was so felt that it's such a loss for the experience that people had. So many people looked forward to coming and seeing Jeff in that booth, chatting him up, Jeff giving the tours, all that. And in a way, us carrying on that night and doing what we do best was like the greatest tribute to Jeff, because we are all products of him. He nourished us all and nurtured us all into, these kind of drive-in warriors that we've become. It's a beautiful thing. That's his legacy, as well as all we can do on the lot for him.
And that will be the name of our first metal band album when we form a band with people in the staff, is Drive-In Warriors.
It's got a good ring, I'm super into it. Yeah, but we did a nice slideshow. Got to give a shout out to manager Dave, who put together an amazing slideshow which we all saw at the memorial service, but the addition of the music, he added Somewhere Over the Rainbow and what's the Wonka
Pure
song?
Imagination from Willy Wonka.
Yeah, and Pure Imagination from Wonka. It was beautiful. And I think it really did kick us off on the right foot. I mean, people know we're coming into this season at a deficit. Maybe they don't know, but coming into this year, in a sense, totally fresh. And we're trying to do our best to carry on and do right by Jeff. And I think this opening weekend, the way we all pulled together was just the perfect example of, we got this. We really do.
Listen, and I'm a firm believer. Jeff is with us on that lot. I think he's in that projection room. He's sitting in his chair. He's waiting for us to come rolling in on Thursday.
You're right.
It was so strange because on Friday, my intermission light on the one side wouldn't turn on. And I always say it's because it's raining or whatever else. And I actually went out to watch the slideshow. And when the slideshow was over, I turned around and the intermission light came on. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're here. Like he's there. He's with us. There is no other place for him to be than with us there on the lot.
Within those four walls, I mean, even just being there so often, there's just like a constant reminder, and constant kind of situation where you're just like, Jeff, I know it. It's you,
Oh my gosh, my popcorn machine.
Oh my God, tell that story. So that's just again, he's there.
So Jeff had went in for surgery. We had went up to the lot to do the promos for the popcorn and run the popcorn machine. So it had been running all day. I had the light on. I had the heater on because I had to get the oil warm enough for it to run. And we started the kettle. It popped absolutely fine. And the light inside the popcorn machine started like blinking, like this
disco
strange,
style.
like flicker. Yeah, like a disco almost. And we were making jokes about it. And, it ran absolutely fine. Popcorn came out beautiful. Got the shots of the bucket, me throwing the popcorn in the air. I was so excited. I was like, Jeff's going to be so excited to see this. And then you had called me to let me know that Monday that he had passed away. And here it was on that Saturday when we were up doing the promo shots. Yeah, so I swear it had to have been a sign. Like he was he was there.
It has not flickered since. It's just
no. The only other light that flickered was the one above the steamer case the other day. And we replaced the light bulb. And everybody knows when I turn that steamer case on, the light always flickers before it turns on. Here it was solid all night long. And all of a sudden it started blinking. And I'm like, Jeff, you need to stop now. Because listen, he always liked to play jokes on all the girls, all the managers that were in the concession stand. And we met Peaches at his service. And he always spoke about Peaches. And here he is. I guess he figures it's his time to pull one over on me. And it's funny because the kids always said that the stand was haunted, and I never believed it. And I don't believe for a second that it's haunted, but he's definitely there with us in spirit.
Oh yeah. And it was really just a beautiful night with people coming out and paying the respects, telling their stories, sharing the love. Saturday was especially beautiful because Tony, Jeff's best friend, came out and DJ'd for the night, which he often does. But he had a pre-recorded DJ set between him and Jeff, which Jeff had a radio show that he ran every Sunday locally. And it was just the perfect little time capsule and perfect little piece of what Jeff loved to do and him shining in a different world than, he shined with us. Did you guys get to hear any of that set?
At one point I went into the projection booth and I had my back to the DJ booth and I started to talk to somebody else who was in there, Robert Christa or something. And I caught myself because somebody was on the mic and I'm like, oh, don't talk when the DJ's talking. And I turned around, there's nobody sitting there. And it was Jeff Jeff talking in the DJ set that Tony was playing. And it sounded so good that I could swear that he was in the room with us, which was wild. And it was so rare to hear him doing his DJ thing. He did it really early on when we put the DJ equipment in the booth at the drive-in. And we would always ask him every season, why don't you get on the mic? Why don't you do a set? And he's like, nah, I do that for a living. I've done it so many times. Let somebody else have a shot. And I think Tony had said that this year he had talked to Jeff about the two of them doing a duo DJ set, like was played on the radio there at our drive-in. And sadly, that will never happen. But it was cool to hear him in his natural radio DJ habitat.
Totally. And he was just crushing it, you know? I love the kind of banter that Jeff had and the cadence that Jeff had. Like, he has an undeniable kind of way that he speaks, and his brother has the same exact kind of cadence where you're like, yep, that's the Jeff thing, you know? But it's just those little things, like we said in the previous podcast, that we'll always remember about Jeff. And Mama Beth, you really didn't have an opportunity to jump on the pod and speak about any of your kind of memories with Jeff. Anything stand out in that sense?
It's funny because I went on and I was looking up some old messages, and there was, I think it was for Real Weird Weekend when we had done John Waters. Yeah. And somebody was handing out those little plastic poops to everybody. And I had went into him and I said, oh, somebody gave you plastic poops. Nobody gave me plastic poops. So I want to say it was either the next day or like the following Tuesday. I went in and unlocked the door like I always do, went into the stand, and there was something in my popcorn machine. And I went over and he left me a plastic poop in the popcorn machine. I took a picture of it. I sent it to him. And I said, did you leave me a present in my popcorn machine? And he said, I didn't want you to feel left out. Well, the best part is I cleaned out the popcorn machine. I go over to the breaker that's right in the front where, you know, you flip the popcorn machine on. And I look, and here's one sitting on top of the breaker box. And I said, oh, you left me
Double
too.
poops.
And he comes back and he literally says, electrifying, isn't it?
That's Jeff to a T. Always so quick with his rebuttals.
Those are the things, like, I guess, you know, nobody really, unless they were there on a regular basis, got to see that he had such a sense of humor, and then he could be so humble and so caring and so kind, and be that person that, you know, after you've had a really tough day, go in and sit with and just talk to, and there was never any judgment, you know, and he would give you all the advice in the world. Or sometimes just those quiet times with Jeff was just so nice to have. I will miss it.
Yeah, it really is that what we say, what Jeff had become was the heart and soul of the place, even though he had given us the tools we needed to operate. And as his physical started to decline over the years, we tried to carry him, prepping for us to be able to carry on in his name.
I mean, me divine. Checking on him every night, making sure he was okay. Did he need anything? Did he need you know, had he eaten today? Had he had anything to drink today? You know, I remember when the doctor had put him on the diet because they had said to him that he needed to lose his weight in order to get ready for surgery and whatever else. And when he had started like riding a bicycle or walking on the treadmill or something like that.
Yeah.
And he had like nuts sitting on the table. And I said, what happened to you? You turned into a squirrel or what? Oh, the doctor told me I needed to lose some weight. I'm like, and you want to eat nuts? Like, it was so weird, you know?
That's Jeff.
It was funny.
Yeah, the drive-in diet is not the most conducive way to lose weight.
Thanks, Mama Beth.
I speak from, you know, going on 10 years of that being my staple diet 6 months out of the year on weekends. And so, yeah. You had a story you told me via Messenger the other day about going to CVS that I wanted to make.
Oh, my goodness. So I wanted to get a picture of him printed out so I could have one behind the stand. And so I could take one for the special on that. So I ordered it that morning, went over to CVS at my lunch break, was picking up the photo. And there's a woman that was running the register and that. And I said, hi, I'm here to pick up a photo. You know, what's the last name, whatever else. She was older, I want to say probably in her 60s. And she went over and she pulled the envelope out. And she said, oh, my goodness, I saw this picture when it came out. And I wish a man would look at me like he's looking.
See?
I looked
telling
at
you.
her and I went, yeah, I mean, because I know that look. I mean, he just had that, I mean, Jeff is a handsome man. I'm not going to lie. And she turned around and she goes, oh, he's so handsome. Was he ever married? And I said, no, 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 no. And, she was talking to whatever else. And I said, well, he had just passed away, whatever else. And she was apologetic and so sorry. And I'm being so rude. And I'm like, no, no, no. Listen, I would have asked you for your number. I would have passed your number along to him. No problem.
He would have been very flattered. Yeah.
Well, that was like
yeah.
him going on the dates with the ex-girlfriend. And I went in
Yeah.
and I sat down in that chair right next to his desk. And I said, hey, so how was dinner last night? He goes, oh, it was really nice. This and the other thing. And I said, so? He goes, so what? And I said, well, I heard you went out with an ex-girlfriend. He goes, news travels fast around here. Where'd you hear that from? Virgil, probably Virgil. And I'm like, and I'm just shaking, like, I'm like, so you want to tell me anything? And he's like, no, something to do, go.
Were you the last one to leave the lot or what?
Don't you have something to do, go.
It's just those little things that are always going to be coming up, not just this season, but forever, that constant reminder. And like I said on the previous podcast, this podcast in a strange way has become a time capsule where we can go back and listen. And even for my DJ set on Friday night, that's how I opened. I played Jeff's intro story, which was podcast 003. And it's beautiful. I love it. Like Jeff talking about the pure magic of him getting his first projector when he was a kid and just how cool it was to be able to control this image on the wall. Like it's so like to the core of what Jeff was. I think he never lost that young excitement for that, simple excitement for that.
And when I listened to your tribute episode, you had turned around and said that, Jeff was never married and Jeff never had kids, but Jeff wasn't alone. And Jeff wasn't alone. He wasn't. And I think that there are people that they have a purpose. And Jeff had a purpose. You know what I mean? He was married to the things that he loved, whether it was radio and collecting antiques and bringing people together and being there for people. Like he was just always there. And I think that was his purpose. And I think he served his purpose. If I can just say, he really did. He served his purpose.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And that's the beautiful thing about this tragedy is, I keep saying we should all be so lucky to leave behind such a legacy and have a position where people carrying it on. I think it's really all he would want is for us to be together, shining, doing what we do best. That's why this opening weekend was so healing in a way that, yes, the service, helped come to terms in a way, but just us being together, I think that's what our hearts needed. We just needed to be all back together and getting that love and appreciation from everybody and proving that Jeff's dream is still alive and well,
And his voice still will open and close every night. We did that weekend and it was so cool. And as far as anybody on the lot is concerned, the recording is perfect. So it sounds, if you're in your car, it sounds like he's in the booth, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. He will forever ride along with us and guide us. And that's the beautiful thing about the Mahoning Drive-In Theater and the family that has been able to come together, carry on, and make this dream kind of come true for so many. Jeff really was our Wizard of Oz. Jeff really was our Willy Wonka. And honestly, the opening weekend every single year is that show where I don't really worry about rain. I don't really worry about the conditions. People are coming regardless. They're just so ready to support. The fact that we sprung it on people 1 week beforehand and we're swapping dates and
we didn't know we were truly going to be able to open until, the last thing that needed to fall into place behind the scenes fell into place. I believe it was like Thursday afternoon before the Friday opening.
Totally.
which, someday we'll get into all the behind the scenes that needed to happen for us to be able to open again. But despite 2 days of rain, not steady rain, but they were rainy days,
Yep.
Friday and Saturday, people still came out, still had fun. The rain, I think, mostly held off. I sat in the car. My mother was joining us for the weekend, and she came down on Saturday. And I sat in the car with her, and I watched Willy Wonka on Friday. And the rain was a little sprinkly during that, but I think it held off for Wizard of Oz for the second show. We had Robbie's Balloons. Talk about Robbie's Balloons, because that was a cool connection, a really cool guy, and a cool day that we had.
Robbie, you can tell, like, he just is that party guy. His family's from Italy, and he's been a balloon man, like, since he was a young kid, like, working with balloons. And when I say working with balloons, people think, like, oh, like, he makes little poodles and stuff. No. Like, this dude will make a 20-foot tall tree with monkeys hanging all over it, a lifelike giraffe, all out of balloons, mind you. And what he did for us was he built a Willy Wonka. So kids could pose with Willy Wonka, all made out of balloons. Very, very cool artist. He actually opened up a shop in town in Lehighton. And when he came into town, our connection through the chamber and the gala that we go to every single year, we hit it off with Robbie right away, because it was like, he's super into pop culture. He's super into just bringing the party. So that's really what kicked it off. He's actually going to help us with several shows this year. He's going to set the decorations for Freddie's 40th birthday party. He's going to help us out on the 75th anniversary on June 6th. So Robbie's a great artist and great contributor that we're excited to bring on this year, and local. That's even the cooler thing, is people can literally enjoy his stuff and then roll over to his shop during the day, check out his stuff in the shop, and now they have something to spice up any event,
And when he stopped by on Sunday to pick up the Willy Wonka that he had done for us, he was like entertaining all of the staff who were setting up with like movie trivia questions and like really like brain twister. And he said, so what was the trivia question? What is a film where two sisters are murdered in the film with two different weapons that are very unique? And Virgil was like, Scream. Now, first of all, I was very impressed. I thought your son, who's a kid who watches kids movies, I thought he was going to say Despicable Me 4 or something.
Nancy was like, good
and
guess,
he's whipping out the
wrong.
90s slasher reference. And you got to be a proud papa to witness that.
That's my boy.
And then tell us what you told us today in the chat about how those balloon things are constructed, because I was really impressed with that.
How they're constructed?
You said that those balloons are like super durable.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. It's like they're a special type of balloon. They're super durable. They're reusable. Like he said, I'm going to take this back to the shop, shine it up, put it on display. Like, what world is this? And obviously he blew our minds at the gala. We saw, this gigantic tree and this humongous giraffe that everybody was posing with. But seeing the stuff that he does is amazing. And he actually did Chocolate World, kind of did this tour with the Willy Wonka kids, ironically. And he was the guy who did the set. So it's just like, it was this perfect kind of destined thing. This guy comes to town and then connects to the Wonkaverse. So it just worked out. Again, another destined, perfect thing that fell into place this weekend.
He should make all of us into balloons. How cool would that be?
Oh my God.
That would be so cool.
He could. It's crazy.
Come on.
You mean through like witchcraft or through his own?
75th anniversary. If he had time, he could have totally did a Jeff. He actually had just gotten back, and we sprung it on everybody. We were opening the week beforehand. And, inside baseball, you guys really did help us save this season. Once again, it's like, how many times can the Phoenix rise? But if we would have lost Zombie Fest, it would have been insanely detrimental and a very hard hill to climb, So thank you guys for coming out and making opening weekend such a success. And it gives us that confidence that, yes, even though we're coming in with a deficit, it's like we're going to catch up. We're going to have no problem. The audience is really going to help us to carry through, as they always do. And man, the merch was flying like crazy. We had a bunch of cool new designs. That Tom Bafuco 75th design, I didn't take that shirt off all weekend. No joke.
I know you smell bad.
If people haven't seen it, if you're a Patreon member, you know I post these things called flashbacks as often as I can that take an old Mahoning newspaper ad from our 75-year history, and I post it and I talk about the movies and stuff like that. I sent Tom a bunch of cool vintage newspaper ads, and he turned those into this 75th anniversary logo that just, it's cool. Like the closer you get to it, the cooler it gets.
Yeah, and there's variants. So like I rock the red one. So it's like baseball tee style. So like it's black, but the top has a different color. So there's a red one, and then there's a gray one as well. So we're kind of seeing how the staff picks their colors. And then at the end of the year, we're going to do like a kickball game. Team red versus team gray. We're going to pick our teams, but unconsciously.
And the winner gets free popcorn.
Yes. Get showered in the leftover popcorn at the end of the year. Huzzah. But yeah, it was really great to be back and having the adventures, the laughs, the hugs, endless hugs. Oh my God. It warmed our heart. Like I said, filled our heart meter up to the top, absolute top. Any other stories from Oz and Wonka?
Talk about the sound upgrade that has been done
Yes.
for this season.
So before Jeff passed away, he was working with the great Bob Weir, who you guys have heard here on the podcast, resident tech at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, to add a new sound rack into the projection booth. And this is something that, look, Jeff was very set in his ways. He loved his old antiques. He loved things that could be restored, not replaced. That's very much his mantra, you know? And the idea that he was okay with Bob putting in this quote unquote backup rack just in case the old Starscope rack went down. And man, I'll tell you, don't get me wrong, we're not working with top of the line modern equipment on that rack, but compared to the Starscope rack, it definitely is an upgrade, enough to the point where it makes sense for that to be the main attraction rack, and we can shift on over as a backup to the Starscope, which we actually had to do this weekend.
On Saturday night, something went wrong, and it was something with the power. Luckily, our friend Jeff C., also a former podcast guest and superstar DJ actually too, he helped us figure out how to fix it, which I believe was turning it off and turning it back on. But did have to use the Starscope, and the Starscope is great because its logo looks like the Star Wars logo, which to me kind of cements the fact that thing dates back to the late 70s to the mid 80s. But
Totally.
yeah, it's why we have backups.
Yeah, and that's been the thing with the addition of Bob over the last couple of years, is he helped us get the new rectifiers in place, as you guys have heard if you've been following the podcast. And same situation. That's the next step, is to get the backup rectifier. So if something, God forbid, happens, we can flick a switch and we're back in biz. And that's our whole thing as we grow. I mean, we've been doing this for 10 years, but we are truly learning every single step of the way and trying to put the things in place that will allow us to run for another 75 years, you know?
And we're very much hyper aware of sound and picture quality. There are obviously limitations to running a 1949 drive-in and trying to be as true as we can to the original, but if you ever see any flaws, please let us know, and don't think that we don't see them and are not working on them steadily. And that's a large part of what Bob has been doing with us, is the improving of the rectifiers to give more power to the projectors to get a brighter image, and improving of the sound, which is very evident when you sit in your car and listen to them now. Always trying to make it better, but not make it so modern that it's not authentic to what we're trying to do.
Yeah, we want those elements to pop. They are the most important elements to the drive-in experience. And, you know, it definitely was an upgrade, but where I really felt it, how many times have you guys heard the intermission reels just running? It runs through my head even when it doesn't play.
It's
and
running under our voices. It's running under our
right now. Right.
And when I hear it in the theater, my neck twitches because I'm like, I've heard this music 10 million times.
Yeah, but hearing that, there were chicka chicka waka wakas in the back that I've never heard so crisp. They were They were popping. Yeah, it's really exciting to step out on the right foot. And I got to say, the lot looked gorgeous. We went above and beyond to try to do our best to get the lot looking as good as possible, filling in those potholes up until the last second. Yeah, it's really exciting. Again, you guys coming back, showing that love. And even though Paris Themin couldn't join us, he is planning on coming back next year. So you guys can look forward to that, and always look forward to our annual Oz and Wonka double.
Speaking of, we need
Yeah.
to talk about the transformation of the special.
Oh my gosh, yes. So perfect segue for you, Mama Beth. So when Mike TV was coming, why don't you tell people what your special was? Because this is genius.
You know, sometimes I just get totally stumped. And this season, I was stumped. I came home from my other job, got in the shower, and somehow you're in the shower, and all of a sudden, all these ideas start popping in your head. You know, get out of the shower, come in the bedroom, and Jeff is sitting here, and he looks at me as I'm standing here in a towel. Don't want to get anybody excited now. And I look at him and I go, my God, I just had the greatest idea in the shower. And he's like jumping like, oh yeah, really? And I'm like, yeah, I know what my special's going to be for opening weekend. And I just saw like sunshine and rainbows turn into like thunderclouds. And I said, not what you were expecting,
He
huh?
swung down. Oh, that.
And I mean, him being him, he just looks at me and goes, I'm intrigued. Let me hear it. Okay. I go, we're going to have Mike TV there. I'm going to make a TV dinner special. I'm going to get like the segmented plates. I'm going to make, I don't know, chicken nuggets, chicken fingers, mashed potatoes. I was like, green beans, because nobody likes corn. I said, and put a brownie on the side. And he was like, that's genius. So I sent you guys right away because it was actually the day that Jeff was in surgery. And Mark was like, it's great. If you can get the trays, that'd be totally cool. And I'm like, we got to keep it in a price point, you know? So I'm on Amazon and I'm looking and doing it, whatever else. And it was crazy because that night, many of us had spoke to Jeff. The next day, I actually pitched it to him and he was excited about it too. Yep. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be so great. I ordered plates, everything's gone back to Amazon now at this point. Because I was like, I'm never going to use these things. I'll just reorder them again if I need them. But yeah, it was supposed to be a TV dinner. I was so excited. And when I sent it to you, the first thing you said was his mother fed him everything in front of the TV.
That's right. It's just too good. You know, it is. We get the best ideas at the weirdest times. Even on the lot, there's several times where it's just like, we'll be sitting there firing back and forth, and all of a sudden it'll just be like, ding, that's it.
I got to write it down. And I literally have to write it down. And then we had come up to prep on the lot, and you and I were standing outside in the back, and you were like, listen, I was thinking about a special. And I'm like, what? Well, you tell me. Because I already knew that I had to change the special, you know, and make it something that Jeff enjoyed, you know, and you and I basically at the same time said, why don't we make a special that Jeff enjoyed having Jeff's here, favorite. You know? Yeah. So
what did you end up going with for this weekend?
It was Jeff's special. It was the meatballs, the pineapple and barbecue sauce. Because every time I made it, he absolutely loved them. He would always be like, can I have more meatballs? Do you have more meat? We always.
Seconds, thirds.
Always. And we always kept extra for him too. Anytime at the end of the night, he was like, hey, do you have any more of that? I'm like, let me check. And we always knew. We always hid it away for him because he always wanted more.
Always
Not that I'm the best cook in the world, but you know, he always loved it. He always wanted more. And that was quite possibly one of the hardest things I ever had to write. I mean, other than what I wrote on Facebook about him, but yeah, writing that special board was super tough. And I actually have like a number of different things, and I would have written a novel about him. So yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Beautiful tributes all around, on screen, off screen, in the stand, out on the lot. It was just a love fest. Exactly, again, what our hearts needed. And if that wasn't cool enough, I said we had our cake and we ate it too in true Mahoning fashion. We had this perfect crowd-pleasing bubblegum opening, and then we shifted into your cult classic 80s teen madness that is joysticks. And Mark, you really knocked it out the park connecting the dots to add some extra Mahoning icing on top of the already awesome 35 screening. Why don't you drop some knowledge?
Well, it's one of the things I love about this gig the most is we create a show, and when we're creating a show, before anybody knows about it, we have ideas about how to make it better. But then once like it's locked, it's like, okay, what's the added value we can bring to this? What are things that are going to want to make people come out and have fun? So the way this show came about was we own a print of joysticks. Jeff bought this, I think, from Harry within the last year.
Yeah.
He would always say to Virgil and I, he's like, okay, I have the opportunity to buy these titles. What do you think? And sometimes I'll say, well, I don't really think we would run it more than once, or it's not very good or whatever. And then sometimes I'll say, ooh, I think we could get some mileage out of that, make our money back. And Joysticks was one because we do this video game weekend every year. And I said, if nothing else, we could run it as a secret feature for that. And it's just a good, dumb drive-in movie. So yeah. I had also concurrently been talking with my friend Derek at MVD. If you don't know MVD, it's MVD Entertainment. They produce Blu-rays and DVDs and they release albums and things. And they're also a distributor for a ton of other companies that you know. Blue Under.
They released at the drive-in.
They're the company that released at the drive-in on DVD with extras. Buy it on DVD. And I was talking to Derek about doing collaborations this season, and I saw that they were going to be releasing joysticks on Blu-ray, and I was like, we have a print of that. Why don't we do a Blu-ray release party? So we picked the date, which happened to be Mother's Day, which isn't the ideal Mother's Day movie, unless your mother's really cool and likes totally awesome video games and 80s boner comedies. Yes. So we did it first Sunday after the release date. So the release date was Tuesday. We did it on Sunday. And the idea was promote their release. They'll be promoting the show on their socials. We'll be promoting their release on our socials. It's a win-win. And how do we make it cool? We'll have MVD come out and vend the Blu-ray. You can buy it there and other titles they've released. We'll do a cool raffle with the joystick soundtrack because I kind of sort of know the guy who has a record company that was created exclusively to release the joystick soundtrack on
Destiny again.
And then we know a lot of these cool retro arcades, and let's see if we can have somebody bring some video games out and turn the snack bar into a little arcade for a couple hours. So all of that happened. Derek came out and he killed with all these Blu-rays and DVDs that MVD has released at really ridiculous prices. I was telling people it's worth paying the $10 to come out and get these deals, even if you don't stay for the movie. And then Mayhem Arcade in Stroudsburg, which is not far from the theater, brought out an original 1981 Ms. Pac-Man cabinet and an original 1979 Asteroids cocktail cabinet. And those were set up on free play. And we all had fun playing that. And and then I did a DJ set of songs from the year of the film 1983, interspersed with songs from the Pac-Man Fever soundtrack. And more than one person said to me, this feels like I'm a kid again because I'm hearing the sounds of arcade games and the music that they would have been playing in the arcade back then. And Rob kicked everybody's ass on Ms. Pac-Man. He set a high score. And then Will, one of our customers, Will, beat it. And then Rob was like, are those machines going to stay here after we close? I said, yes. He gave me the nod, like, I'm going to beat the high score before the end of the night.
Stuck around, that is for sure.
It was just so much fun. It wasn't a big crowd, but it was a super cool vibe. MVD did great, so we hopefully will do more stuff with them in the future. It was just everybody had a great time. And Beth, perfect. I'm sorry about having to hear Ms. Pac-Man music at top volume.
Yeah, it was so loud.
I was just thinking to myself, it would be so cool to have some of those old vintage arcade games in the stand. It really would.
It's funny.
They don't take up a whole lot of space. I mean, that was really nice to have them in there, honestly.
Even this year, we decided to move the popcorn display that we got from the Mahoning Valley Cinema, the indoor, before they closed, and move it inside. And what we did is we had Miss Pac-Man sitting right next to it. We had the Asteroids machine next to that. Plenty of space there, but the crazy thing, again, the Mahoning is just a Destiny train, it seems like. Our old buddy Cliff Albert, who had been a supporter of the Mahoning forever, actually went and saw his band perform when I was still running the Vineyard. So going back many, many years, his job now is to place machines for Mayhem, the arcade that we partnered up with for joysticks. So right away, I'm just like, so you're saying that you just go around and place machines and collect the quarters and that's your gig? He's like, yeah. I'm like, we should totally just have a revolving pin here, like it would be a dream to have a pinball machine there. And Jeff would agree. Oh my goodness. But to have one there that revolves every 3 months, how cool would that be?
That'd be very cool. You just have to make sure I have a lot of change in the drawer when people want to come up. And
That's
you're going to become,
We're gonna need a lot more.
We got to get you one of those. The thing I loved about the arcade, you guys will remember this, is the change guy who would walk around. He'd have like this thing on the side of his pocket that was filled with quarters.
With the metal.
Yes.
And he didn't even have to look. He'd just be like,
yep. We're going to get you one of those.
That, or it'll be like Pee Wee Herman in Midnight Madness, where he has what looks like a gun, but it shoots a stack of quarters into your hand.
Why did I think you were going to say like the laundromat? We were going to put one of those machines in the wall and you feed your like $5 bill in and then it spits out all the change at you.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah. What a dream. I'm telling you. And again, one of those things that fell in place so naturally. This event is the perfect example of, the army that it takes to put on a Mahoning event. And this weekend really was that perfect example of what we do best. We can really hit the classics right on the nose, and then we can make the hardest right into the most cult of cult classics and do it just as big. It was fantastic. And you got to mention the introductions, Mark. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. I was going to say, it really felt like the old days at the theater. Not a ton of people, but everybody there is just cool and they're loving it. And I left early because I needed to get back to where I live while the movie was running. And I just heard people on the lot laughing at the goofy, saucy humor in the film and everything. We always try to do as much as we can for a show to make it cool. So what I did was, once we knew we were doing this, I contacted as many people associated with the film joysticks as I could to see if they would do video intros that we would play before the film. And the first person to reply was John Grise, who most people now know as Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite. But he had played this goofy punk rock character, King Vidiot, in the film. And he sent us an intro from wherever he's shooting a film somewhere right now, in character as King Vidiot. Now, not with makeup or anything, but doing the voice. And it was really funny. Becky LeBeau, who was a 80s nudie cutie movie star. She's in a ton of things. If you watch enough 80s movies that had nudity in them, sooner or later you saw Becky LeBeau. She's in
it. Still looked great too.
Oh yeah, it was really funny. Like, she got laughs in her intro, and she mentioned she dropped the name of the theater, which was cool. She congratulated MVD on the release, and we got one from Graydon Clark, the director of the film. It was like almost 3 minutes long, where he talked about the genesis of the project and how they shot it. And then we had one with Eric from MVD, who's the guy who decided that they would release it on Blu-ray. And the packaging, I'm not going to go into the hard sell, but they have this thing called the MVD Rewind Collection. And I do this review show when I'm not at the theater, and I get a lot of these releases. And the packaging makes it either look like an old videotape cover from the 80s or something like that. In this case, it looks like an old Atari cartridge box, like the same font, the same coloring, and the reversible cover on the inside makes it look like an Atari cartridge. And just the level of detail they do is amazing. And he did an intro, and then Rob had put together some retro trailers, including an original 35 millimeter Dig Dug theater advertisement from the 80s. It was so much fun.
We were firing on all cylinders. That's really, like, we came back swinging.
And Beth, you had 2 new employees for the snack.
I was going to say it was a beautiful crowd all the nights, and it was just a perfect weekend to train my 2 new staff that were coming into it, Patrick and Gavin. They were both fantastic. Jeff would have loved them. My veteran crew really stepped up. Zoe really took them under her wing and really trained them on the popcorn machine and the register and everything. I couldn't have asked for a better weekend. It was fantastic.
And Gavin was excited. I posted the list of the MVD discs that they were going to be selling, and Gavin was like, well, I wasn't working that night, but I'm coming out now.
He was the coolest.
You mentioned we had our cakes and ate it too. We had 2 cakes on Friday night, I think it was. There was one huge cake that was a Mahoning 75th anniversary congratulations cake that had very red frosting and very blue frosting. So everybody who ate it looked like they had blue teeth and a tongue, which was And then later that night, it was Nancy's birthday. We had a very shortcake cake for her that was really nice. And I said to the guys, that our 2 new hires, I'm like, where else do you get cake on the first night on the job, unless you work at a cake factory?
They were so cool. It was great just seeing seeing them step and blend right in with the crew, like sitting there holding court, the girls are around laughing. It was just really nice to see. And our kind of motto when we hire people is, how do you really, train somebody for the unique nature that is the Mahoning Drive-In Theater? So it was a great way to just kind of have them get their feet wet, see us at our best with a good crowd. It was really fantastic. I'm in love with both those guys already.
And Saturday was busier. And the both of them looked at me and they were like, wow, that was a crowd that came through. And I was like, oh, that was nothing, guys.
You
That
wait,
was
wait
easy.
for Zombie
I
Fest.
said, you wait. It's in 2 weeks we have Zombie Fest. Wait for Camp Blood. Wait for VHS Fest. And they're like looking at me like sweating. And I'm like, oh, VHS Fest. That one's a good one. Wait.
Like,
That crowd never stops. They want their chicken nuggets and mozzarella sticks all night.
it never stops.
That sounds like something a 70s smoothie would say to a potential date. Like, baby, I'm going to give you chicken nuggets and mozzarella sticks all night long.
You got to say it all night long.
Oh. Yeah, it was really, really a great weekend. Memories made right out the gate. It's just, it's so good to be back, guys. Back in the saddle, doing what we do best, and with so much support and love behind us.
Yeah, but talk about those Thursday punch cards.
Oh my God. Yes.
Discounts.
Yeah, so the great Tom Bafuco put together our punch cards for this year. And this was an idea because last year we had our Tuesday series with Exhumed Films. This year we're shifting to Thursdays, which we said very much is a way to connect the island, much more manageable as far as the schedule for us. And the idea of this new series or any series is you want to retain that audience. If we can get that core audience to enjoy Thursdays and come back on Thursdays, that ensures that it's going to be successful. So we came up with this punch card incentive idea, and it's a really cool classic, like business card design. Almost reminds me of like a 50s, kind of ink press design. And the way it works, every time you come, you bring the card on through the concession line when you're picking up your food. Mama Beth or the kids will punch a number for you as you get up in numbers. I think it's 5, you get a free popcorn. 10, you get a free ticket and popcorn, and 15, you get 2 tickets. So the more you come, the more incentives you get, and they're just such a cool little addition. I think, it's going to be a collectible for people too.
Absolutely. I think that was a me suggestion. I think I turned around and I had said, what about like the Wawa coffee cards that they used to have?
Oh, totally.
When you were looking for it last season. And I was like, why not a punch card? And I think that was kind of like what it got all rolling.
Yeah. And that's how these ideas come. It's that organic kind of everybody tossing in the ideas, and it really seeing it come to fruition. It's really cool to see. So hopefully you guys can make it out. We have a lot of cool Thursdays on the docket. We're starting to announce shows again now that things are settling in here. VHS Fest is going to be announcing. So many people have been reaching out. Is VHS Fest still happening? Yes.
We've been asked that since approximately January.
Yes. So we can finally ease everybody's minds and release the dates of VHS Fest. It is stacked, just as you would expect. VHS Fest is kind of the staple of summer for us. Every drive-in relies on that Memorial Day to Labor Day run, and certainly that's the case for us, but we have a lot of fun stuff peppered throughout the summer this year. The National Drive-In Celebration, our 75th anniversary celebration, has just been announced. Our Jurassic Park and April Showers screening. We're showing April Showers first and Jurassic Park next. And this was a discussion that we had, and in pure Mahoning fashion, we lead with history. That's just what we do. Even though the Jurassic Park is the bubblegum, likely will be the draw, the idea that we are screening the very first movie that ever played at the Mahoning Drive-In in 1949 is pretty special, and everybody should experience that in full. Remake Double Take. So Remake Double Take normally is our second weekend of the year. The studios were so gracious when the news came through the line to them. And some of them reached out to us before I could even let them know, with really beautiful words of support and love for Jeff. But they were so nice about, hey, hold on to the prints. We'll get you reestablished in the system. That's just such a rarity, I think, and just shows the support that the Mahoning has beyond the fandom and beyond even the lot. The industry truly does respect and love what we do. They let us hold on to all the prints for Remake Double Take. So House on Haunted Hill, that double is going to be on the 7th of June now. And our 13 Ghost double is going to be on the 8th of June now. So definitely worth mentioning that. I don't know if you guys saw, I sent it. So we're doing this Clue event this year. We do a toy show every single year. And this year we're adding a toy/game market. And the Big Kid Toy Store, we absolutely love them. They're like super creative couple that brings so much fun to the lot. They donate to the raffles all the time. But they sent us this photo today. They're going to be doing a kind of contest on the lot. They're going to be hiding the weapons from Clue across the lot. And if you find them all, you win a prize.
To be clear, there will not be an actual murder on the lot.
Yes, of course. The knife will be rubber. The pistol will be capped. But man, what a fun little addition. That's perfect Mahoning cherry on top style, Not only do we get that fun screening on 35, but we get to have some fun before the movies.
And I did want to point out for people who are listening to the podcast, if this is not your first time listening to the podcast, that we do have more of the owner-operator interviews that we recorded in the off-season coming up. I think we have like 3 or 4 more that we recorded. Most, I think all but one with Jeff. So you'll still hear Jeff's voice on this podcast for a little period of time.
Yes.
And we have an interview, an origin story that we recorded with Vince, who is one of our Mighty Mahoning merch table staffers. So that will be coming along soon. And every time we recorded one of those owner-operator interviews, Virgil and I afterwards would say, I think this is the best one we've ever done. So like they're all good, and I think they get better as they go along. So stay tuned for that. We'll intersperse those with things like this, where we talk about what's going on with the theater now. Most of the owner-operator interviews are not really that time sensitive, but more fun and frolic coming your way. And we'll also try to get, guests. Various staffers will join us, like Beth is tonight, because it's always more fun with more folks. And we'll be having various celebrities or authors or people connected to upcoming shows coming on to talk about a little more in depth than we get online with talking about some of the subject matter of our shows.
The podcasts with Jeff, and I have to just say, doing this podcast, this was an idea that kind of came out of the blue. Like the idea of the Patreon, the idea of the podcast, digging deeper as people got more interested in what we were doing. Really what fueled this fire was Jeff. And of course he encouraged the idea that we're going to have a radio show. Like that's his bag. But being the guys in front of the mic every week with Jeff, I think naturally we've gotten better over time just by like wanting to impress him. I don't know about you, Mark, but that's how I've been,
Well, that was like when you were doing a DJ set at the theater. He was always sitting right there watching you. And if he ever gave you a thumbs up or commented on the music you played or your mic style, it was always like a huge compliment coming from him because he'd done it for, God, arguably longer than some of us have been alive.
Yeah, he the man. Yeah, Jeff, you're with us even on this podcast every single time we hit record. And you guys know it. You'll hear him every single time we come in, every single time we come out.
As you leave the theater, folks, please be careful. Don't let this happen to your car. Be sure to remove the speaker before you leave. If you should accidentally pull a speaker loose, please turn it in at our snack bar or box office. Thank you.
Well, the new mantra, 35 millimeter for life and Jeff for life. Jeff, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field, and most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night and God bless you.